All right. Welcome, everybody, to this wonderful new Facebook Live chat. I am your host, Betsy Bird, and according to my thing down here, it just says librarian, which I didn't really notice that it was saying, but sure, that works. And I am pleased as punch today to introduce my guest, Liniers, coming to us live from Vermont.
Oui.
Hello. If you guys aren't aware, Liniers is one of Argentina's most famous and beloved cartoonists. He's probably best known as the creator of the popular Latin American comic strip Macanudo, seen here, which is now syndicated in newspapers all over the U.S. His children's books include TOON's The Big Wet Balloon, which was followed by Written and Drawn by Henrietta, and Goodnight Planet. Now, this April, he is releasing a brand new book, which is called Wildflowers. It is, as they describe it, a celebration of the magical bonds that unite children. He will be joining us from his home in Vermont. Well, that's where he is right now, where he lives with his wife and 3 daughters. So, how are you doing today?
Very well. Can't complain. I'm in the middle of the woods. It's a good place to spend a pandemic.
What's the temperature like where you are right now?
It's cold.
It's cold,
every day,
yeah.
Forever.
At Vermont,
well,
I think, yeah.
We're at 32 today.
32?
In Argentina, we go with centigrade, so it's, so it's always hot.
Wait, was that centigrade or was that Fahrenheit? Because if it's 32
Fahrenheit, it's zero centigrades, 32 Fahrenheit.
There you go. Okay, that's fine. Because if it was 32 centigrade, then I was not going to feel sorry for you at all.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Oh, you're hardly even freezing, though. You're perfectly fine. So, all right. Well, let's just start right at the beginning here. Here we have Wildflowers, featuring 3 little girls. Where did this book come from?
When I became a father, and you're a mother, so maybe you have been through this also. When you see your little kids and they're running around and they're all cute and tiny and fun and this kind of amazing physical comedians, you just want to press pause. Like, stay like this. Don't grow up. Stay, 5 or 7 or 8. Don't grow up exactly.
Yeah,
so
there's your.
You try to find where is the pause button. How do I and they don't have a pause button. And they start
they really
and then you realize every size and age is fun. Every size, they're all crazy and fun. But my way of finding, like, how do I keep one of these days with me, like, in a magic place, is in a book. So The Big Wet Balloon, Goodnight Planet, and these Wildflowers are the 3 books. I have, like, my little trilogy of my girls, of books that just sprung from me just looking at them and going like, oh, they're crazy and fun and weird. Let's see where they take me now.
So for this one specifically, was there like an inspiration that like where did it actually, like, it came from them? But
you just showed, this photograph.
Such a good photograph.
Yeah, I took this photograph in Mexico.
You took that. That wasn't like a setup studio, because I'm looking at the light here and I'm like, that's a good photo.
Yeah, I was as surprised as you were. I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And it looks almost like a set.
Yeah, it does. It looks.
And I love the way they're standing, like their physical language, and the little one is kind of pointing into the jungle. And
they're literally at the edge of a jungle, which is
exactly
amazing.
So we were, traveling through Mexico, and just, they were this crazy fun age. And then I started kind of thinking and remembering how we used to play when we were kids, and what playing was and what playing actually was. Not like, from the grown-up point of view. It's very analytical. Oh, look, they're, pretending that they're driving a car, so because they're fun. No, just how crazy it was to play when you were a kid, and how it was all about, like, getting even some adrenaline pumping. It was playing cops or whatever, and you were like hiding, or hide and seek was like scary if they find me. And I like that. I that's what I like about Maurice Sendak's Where the Wild Things Are. It's very much like, this is how we play with monsters. So I started thinking about that, like how do I, how could I do a book that kind of, goes into the joy of playing, but also like the crazy danger that you're supposed to feel when you're a kid. And so I started with, the good old, Lord of the Flies concept, Robinson Crusoe. A plane crashes into an island and there's only 3 little girls that survive. And when I talk to, editors and publishers, they always looked at me like, isn't that a little bit tragic for a kid's book? And I went like, no, that's what you play when you're a kid. Like,
Yours is much nicer. Usually I killed all the grown-ups off. Like a horrible plague has destroyed all the grown-ups.
Everybody died in the plague except these 3 little girls. So yeah, it's Lost for kids. What could go wrong?
That's okay. You're taking all my statements and you're already saying them. I was going to say Lost for kids, except it actually has a satisfying ending. So difference there.
Yeah. In your face, Mr.
No one's glasses get broken.
Mr. Abrams. I figure out how to make a decent ending for Lost. And that was also the other thing.
This is a good ending for Lost. I like it a lot. It has sort of a Saint Elsewhere kind of ending. Yeah. But
so I like that. I like the also kind of the surrealist thing that goes into the book. Like, what's this? Like, it's snowing in the middle of the jungle, or
but the snow's popcorn. That's sort of an Alice in Wonderland thing with the talking flowers.
Exactly, the big, huge, crazy, weird flowers. Like,
and then it has my favorite character. Look at that gorilla.
But it's a tiny gorilla. That also came out from like real life. Like I was taking my one of my daughters and a friend of hers, and they saw something move in the Vermont. It was all snowed in, and they saw something move in the woods or whatever. And, oh, something's moving in the woods. There must have been a deer, but I told them it was a tiny gorilla. And they were like, there are no gorillas in Vermont. Yeah, but they're very tiny. And just seeing how much they were laughing about the concept of a tiny gorilla, I was like, a
tiny gorilla is awesome. Well, I don't want to give too much away with this book, but what I like about it is that you read it through the first time, and as an adult, you're reading with your adult brain, and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. I don't. Why would she say that? Why are they saying? And then you get to the twist at the end, and you're like, oh, and then you go back to the beginning, and it all makes sense.
Oh my God, he Shalamaned us. He M. Night Shyamalan.
Early M. Night Shyamalan.
This was then the whole time in the book. Yeah, that's
I mean, there's a moment where they have the tiny gorilla and they put it in their pocket, and then they're running, and then they're like, maybe that's a tiny giraffe, and they're like, you can't have a tiny gorilla and a tiny giraffe. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, oh, okay.
That was the other thing about playing, how rules kind of pop up, and sometimes one is the one in charge of, now this is a castle. No, it's not a castle. This is like it's a rocket ship. Okay, it's a rocket. How
that's what I love. Like, I love that they keep like asking, like, is that a thing?
Yeah, can I say the next thing? And the other one goes like, no, it's a dragon.
Like, do plants talk on this island? They might. It's like, we're making this up as we go along.
I had fun with that.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's my whole life. I looked a lot about. I tried to remember a lot how I felt as a kid. Just from my drawings or the daily strip or the books. And then you have actual kids, you make people, and then you have like this little play that you go like, oh, it was like this. Oh, I didn't care that my parents were, picking up after me or making us food or whatever. I really didn't care. I thought it was their job.
Exactly.
Oh,
It is their job. Yeah. So well, the parents are completely off-site. I mean, they're just that voice that calls in when there is food on the table. Yes.
When they destroy the magic.
Exactly.
Grown-ups.
Like all parents do. Good parents. Anyway.
Kill the dragon. Yeah.
Kill the dragon. Exactly. Only reality can kill a dragon, as the book says. So when you what do you read comics to your girls?
I read everything. Yeah, comics, books, novels. Like we go through different moments. We went through like To Kill a Mockingbird or Asterix or Mafalda, the Argentinian iconic character that the
Iconic.
States is yet to know. But yeah, and I pay a lot of attention what I read to my kids. Like people are very fast to like underestimate children's literature or what books you give to kids. I just make them read some whatever Disney put out or whatever, and it's the base of everything you will read as a human being. So it's what you read as a kid becomes part of you in a really different way than what you read as a grown-up. And so I try to pay attention. There's books for kids are like books for grown-ups. Some are good, some are bad, some are really, really, really bad. And you try to find those books that don't underestimate the readers or their kids, and that they don't talk down to them. I'm not very interested also in like teaching lessons to them. Just I want them to read my books and then want another book. That's my mission here.
That makes sense. And then, so you would say comics are good for kids then?
They're great, and they're great. Yeah, the Francois, my very, very nice publisher, Francois Mouly, always says that they're like a gateway into literature, into grown-up books. They really help kids. Some kids are like natural readers, and they grab whatever Little Women or Anne of Green Gables, and they go through them, and some kids it's harder for them to just go into the literature world. And this provides context, provides texture to the characters, and it's just it propels them into like. So some of my kids were into books very fast, some of them weren't. But the second a kid finishes a book by themselves, and I like these level 2 books
level 2,
because they are the first books that a kid reads by themselves. Like their parents can read it to them, but if they can go through it. And I remember finishing my first books and first comic books, and you would go to your parents and tell them, what, I finished this one, and then I finish another one, and then you grab Harry Potter or whatever, and then you go, I finish Harry Potter. It's like a zillion pages.
Oh yeah, like a brick of a book. Yeah.
But so I like that some of my readers will have a very fond memory of me when I'm old. To go like, you were there at the beginning, buddy.
That's true. You have now a huge influence on like future adults' memories right here and now. Wow. What did you read when you were a kid then? What are your influences?
Well, that's the thing. I started reading comics. The first thing I read was Mafalda, as I told you, in Argentina, is this kind of our Charlie Brown would be Mafalda, but Mafalda also has this kind of like a political layer to it that maybe Charlie Brown doesn't have as much.
Yeah, it's like if you took Charlie Brown and you took Doonesbury, and exactly. That's Americans can get that. It's just that's that comic. Yeah. So
if you're 6-7 years old and you're reading about like how policemen hit people on their head with sticks on their ideologies, there's some of those.
I don't think anyone's talking about that.
Some of those strips went right over my head, but it's a very sweet and funny comic strip. So I kind of started there, and then I went to Asterix and Tintin and whatever I could grab on to comics. And throughout my whole life, I always found the comics for my age, So if I was 10, I would go into Tintin, and then I was 13, I would find like, more grown-up comics like Adventures. And then I was, 15, I would find Milo Manara. Oh, this is very good. And then Mouse and Crumb. Like I would always find, it would take some time because back in the 80s and 90s, it was like comics are for kids. But if you looked for them, you'd find them. Now you find them everywhere, which is great.
Oh yeah.
But what was super interesting about TOON books, and the first time I met Francoise, I think she told me this, and she blew my mind because I had spent years in Argentina trying to convince people that comics were not just for kids. Was that the first time I talked with Francoise was like, I am doing this TOON book collection because people are not doing comics for kids anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? Like I had forgotten about kids too. I was like all like, graphic novels and da da da. And then I realized, oh, this is a good effort that this woman is doing. Just give back kids comics, because
Yeah, getting good creators too. She gets good people to do the TOON books.
I think she must have talked to Art Spiegelman and was like, buddy, you're doing one.
Oh, he
but
did. Yeah, he did. He did a couple, I think, actually. Yeah,
yeah,
he did a couple.
there are beautiful books that they put out, like Jeff Smith and Ruth Modan, and like a lot of my heroes are being published, and I get to be in those collections. Like whenever I see the names, these people and mine just in the list, I'm happy. I'm a happy camper.
Now, of course, in this book, Wildflowers, it stars your three daughters. Like, now that this has happened, are they insisting that you do more books about them? They're like, well, that was a nice start.
That's the thing. I think the big wet balloon, my third daughter hadn't been born yet, right? So It was just my first two daughters, and they were one day playing outside in the rain, and it was a summer rainy day, and they were like, the way they were interacting with the rain was very funny, because one was 5 and she was all into like, yay, and the other one was 3 and she was freaking out like, this is the scariest thing, I don't know what's going on here. So that became a book. Then when we moved here to the States, I already had a third daughter, and she bought, like, we took her to a toy store, and she picked up this little like felt deer, and I asked her, what's the name of your new little friend? And I thought she was going to say, she was 2.5, like she knew 35 words, and I thought she was going to go with Pony or Booby or I don't know, and she went with Planet. It was like Planeta. She said it in Spanish, Planeta. And I was like, what? I didn't know she was into astronomy at all. And then so that's Goodnight Planet came out of that, those two guys. But then so I had one book with 2, one book with 1, and I needed a book with the 3 of them.
That's
all about the trilogy. All about the trilogies. This is a Star Wars thing or whatever. It's 3 girls, 3 books.
Well, and it's dedicated to all 3 of them too. So I think that's the thing that the parents who write books for their kids, that's always kind of a problem, is that if you dedicate it to one, then you have another one. It's like, oh shoot, now we got to make another book because it's not fair.
The little one was like, why am I not in that? Do you not love me? It's like, people that tattoo their names or whatever, and they have to have.
And then they're like, how come she gets mentioned in 3 of your books, but I've only ever been mentioned in 1 of your books?
You know what's gonna happen when they hit the teenage years.
Oh,
I
yeah.
never.
No, not even.
That's the thing. When I did the first one, I was thinking of changing their names, not using their actual names, because I didn't, just because I thought it would be weird or whatever. But then also it was them. It like read really weird, and I said like Christina. It wasn't Christina. It was Matilda. So I just and then I read how A.A. Milne used Christopher Robin, his son, and all his toys, Winnie the Pooh, and blah blah blah, and Eeyore, were all his toys. So I went like, oh well, it worked for A.A. Milne. And then I read how much Christopher Robin hated his father. So
he goes to boarding school, and all the guys there are like, hey, Christopher Robin.
Yeah.
It's like,
how's your teddy bear named
Where's your teddy bear, Christopher Robin? It's like,
how's your Pooh coming along? And so this can go either way, I think.
Well, and it's I used to work with his doll. I worked with the original Winnie the Pooh at New York Public Library, and the whole reason we had it was that he was old. He just gave him to the publisher. He was like, I don't want him, and then the publisher gave him to the library.
So did you handle it, or?
Yeah, I did once. You can't now. It's impossible. But okay, this is off topic. But I'll just say really quickly, we discovered there might be a music box in Winnie the Pooh's stomach. So my boss and I put on our white gloves and we went hoocha 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 hoocha.
Did you feel anything?
We never figured it out. It's rusted solid. I don't know, but someone at Dutton told me it was there. So
You fondled Winnie. Okay, good to know.
And then because I was in the case, I just saw all the other animals, and I went touch, 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 touch. Yeah, that was the last time anyone touched him, as far as I know.
That's a good one. That's a good experience.
It was a great experience. But yeah, so yeah, that's the dark side of naming the character. But
so it can go either way, you know. But why do you have kids? To make experiments.
Exactly, and it's not like their names are like Christopher Robin's kind of rare. You don't meet that many Christopher Robins.
No,
but
in this one, actually, within the story, they are not named.
Well, there you go.
Because when you're playing with your sisters, you're not saying their names. You're saying, "Come here." You don't say, "Matilda, come here."
That one, the short one. You get over here.
And I kind of also like that, you know, kids can put themselves into the characters if they're not named. So on the last two, they are not named.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I just want to give like total credit to your end papers. I love a good end paper. Yeah. I love how you've done this with the number. You've numbered each one. Naturally, it makes me want to go to the back and be like, "Is there a guide?" Of course, there's not. No, it's just how you. And then they're just sort of numbered alongside.
They're in there,
which is good. End papers go a long way on a book, and so
I like everything about a book. I like every detail. I like the you know, I like everything. Like I need everything to be that some thought went into.
Mm-hmm.
There's one of my absolute heroes is Chris Ware, and
yes, he lives here in Chicago. Yeah.
Oh yes, and one day I'll do like I'll go like on an adventure just to meet him.
Me too, actually, because he lives right over there. I never met him.
I'm gonna ask Francois for his address or something. I will just pop in. But he thinks about everything in his books.
Yeah,
and I just love that about him. That every detail is considered, and I wish
he's so meticulous. Yeah. Oh, all right. You had told me this before, but I don't think we actually mentioned it on here. So you're living in Vermont now. Why are you living in Vermont now?
Yeah, it's because I'm from Buenos Aires, and I lived my whole life in the middle of this huge city. Like, you know, I don't know how many million people live there. And I was born there. So my whole life has been surrounded. I have never seen a horizon. Like for a long, like you don't see horizons in cities. And then for a while, me and my wife, before we have kids, we lived in Montreal, and we loved it over there. It's beautiful, and it was so, you know, and I loved snow. And then we had our girls, and we wanted to find a place to live, you know, for a while outside of Argentina and just have a little Robinson adventure. And this place popped out of nowhere called the Center for Cartoon Studies, which is like a master in fine arts. You get a master's degree in comics, which is something that I would have loved to have when I was 20, because the way I went about comics was like I sat down and tried to figure it out myself. That's how you used to do it. And now there are schools and people, you know, help you. Yeah, that's and people help you figure out stuff that takes you 20 years to figure out for yourself. They'll help you. They'll tell you in a couple of years. And those nice people invited me to be a fellow there for a year, and I ended up here in Vermont, and it's just such a beautiful place. And you know, and then I started doing some courses in Dartmouth. I've been teaching Latin American comics to Dartmouth students too, because in Hanover is right next town. So
you do a whole course on Latin American comics?
Yeah,
I want to take that course. That sounds like a fantastic course.
It's a fun course, and I'm very aware that all these students from Dartmouth with parents that pay very high. I'm very sure that all the parents are very happy that their kids are studying Latin American comics. I'm like, yes, this is why Brian.
That will get him a job.
But it's I really like teaching that term, and so it like this kind of weird life started popping up around us. So we've been here for the last 4 years, and now we want to see how, you know, this country is without Donald Trump for a while.
Hey, that's an idea.
A little while longer. is this country without?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll stick around for a little longer for sure.
That sounds like a plan. Well, one other thing I wanted to ask you about. So, I had mentioned that. So you had this strip, Macanudo.
I'm very old school, as you can see. I do everything like watercolor. These are our future strips.
I know that comic. It's in here. Oh, that's so. Oh man. If you could just reach through your screen and hand that to me so that I can own that now, that would be just pass that.
This is like future strips, so you don't tell the people in King Features that I'm showing you what's coming.
So the style is so different though. So you've got a very not bare bones, but it's like a pen and ink, a more simple style that's going on there. And then you look at this. And I'm just going to show that gorilla again because any excuse to show that gorilla. I mean, come on. Yeah, look at that dragon. And this just, it's just amazing. And
it's always fun when you do those kind of realistic drawings and you come from doing these like funny, weird people. You always get like, but you know how to draw. Why would you draw like this if you know how to do a gorilla or a dragon? And
children's authors get that too, though. Children's are like, why do you write for kids? You're actually a good writer. It's like,
and how much more fun is to go to the crazy place than to go to the natural one, so it's, but yeah, when I do Macanudo, when I do my daily strip, is this a lot of fun that I have. I like going, it's a kind of a crazy strip where I can go Calvin and Hobbesy, or I can go Far Side, or I can go like
Far Side is where I would go with that. Yeah, it's a lot of Far Side. Yeah.
So it's a strip where I do a lot of experimenting, and it's wild and crazy, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's weird. But when I do stuff that other than the daily strip, I don't want to do the same thing. I don't want to do Macanudo, the graphic novel. I want to go to other, have new toys. So when I do the Wildflowers, or if I did graphic novels for grown-ups, like whatever I do outside of Macanudo, I don't want it to be more of that because I already have that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the tone is completely different. Like, you read these and they're great. I love them. There's a monster named Olga who only says Olga. Like, that's really down my. I love that. And then, but then it's not a different sense of humor. It's just a slightly adjusted sense of humor, I would say.
I think the Macanudo, I'm doing it for me. What makes me laugh, or what makes I'm not thinking of anyone else, not because I'm a megalomaniac or anything like that, or egocentric, but Argentinians we are, so it's fine. But because I don't know anyone else, like I have no idea what you like, what other readers like, so I just try to make do something that interests me. But when I write these books, I know that the readers are going to be kids, and so that's in the back of my mind, and I'm thinking, how, what kinds of stories did I like as a kid, and how did I like to be treated as a kid? I loved stuff that did not talk me, those people that, so you're a kid, we're gonna talk to you like this.
Yes.
Let's have a lot of fun. I just talk to
books
kids
that do that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I never liked them as a kid.
No.
When I was a kid in Argentina, the way you saw cartoons before Cartoon Network and before all these 24 hours you have to watch like a show, and in the show there was these people dancing and doing oh, hello kids, and I was just, get to Tex Avery, and then you saw Tex Avery, and they weren't going they were just crazy, and this Chuck Jones and all those Warner Brothers. And they were not talking down to kids. And then back to the real people. Hello, kids. Let's talk about brushing our teeth. I couldn't care less about teaching your kids how to brush your teeth. I barely am able to teach mine.
That's the quote I'm taking from this whole talk. I don't care about teaching your children to brush your teeth.
That's your responsibility. My responsibility is they read the book and they go I want more of these things. I want more books. And
I think, and it's very much the case where we get a lot of books that are Yeah, they're like the book equivalent of like, "Hi, kids."
Yeah.
So
No, some
we're
books
going
are
to be learning today. Yeah.
There are some people that make didactic books very well, and
Yeah.
it's not that I'm against didactic books. I'm not good
It's
at
the basis of all children's literature, didacticism. It is.
it.
But
Exactly. I
there
am
are
just
different
not
ways
very
of
good
doing
at that. And also, I don't care. I don't care if your kid eats broccoli. I couldn't care less.
Let them eat cake. Quote Liniers. Okay, I don't see any problem with that. Well, and the thing about this book is, and this is very much in line with what you're saying, is that there's such a respect for the child reader because, like I say, when I read it the first way through, I was like, I don't even know what this book's doing. It doesn't seem it's what because I thought a plane actually crashed on it. I mean, you know, it looks like a plane crashed on an island. I was totally believing it, but then for a character to immediately say there was a terrible plane crash, I'm like, well, we just saw the plane.
Yeah,
You don't have to say there was a plane crash, and then I'm like,
that's the other thing.
they're making
Why
this
are they
up.
narrating? Yeah, exactly. Why is she narrating? Well, when you're a kid, it's it's exploding. You narrate what you're
yeah. There's like, yeah, and then one's like, my favorite friend's a butterfly. Maybe it was on the plane. The other one's like, no, butterflies are not on planes. Like that's such the older kid. Like, no, like what you're saying doesn't make sense in the fake world we're making up. There's an internal.
Yeah. My little itty bitty girl Emma told me about her friend Bill, who was a butterfly, and it stuck. Like Bill the butterfly will show up at some point.
As names for butterflies go, Bill, fantastic. Yeah. So I commend her butterfly naming choices. Those are excellent.
Well, Planet and Bill, she's going 2 for 2. Yeah.
Exactly. But it takes a certain level of sophistication to read this book. I mean, not the words are simple. So, you know, like we say, level 2. Yay. But it takes first of all, to even read a comic, because I've seen adults who did not grow up reading comics, and you would hand them a comic and they'd be literally like, okay, do I read the pictures first or the words first?
I had that problem with my father-in-law. I was trying to connect with him, and I gave him mouse just because.
Oh God! So you just started with
how happy he was that
reading, like not Jeff Smith, mouse.
But imagine how excited my father-in-law was that his daughter was marrying a cartoonist.
It's every father's dream.
I tried to connect him, so I gave him mouse because he was very interested in Second World War, and he told me exactly that. I don't know how long to look at the drawing.
Yeah,
because you're doing something that it's very cerebral. What you're doing, you're moving characters. You're filling the panels, the space between the panels with what's going on.
I'm 3 seconds from grabbing my Scott McCloud Understanding Comics here, just like. Which everyone should read because that just covers all the basics. But exactly. And so kids like learning languages. Kids' brains are much better early on. If they can read comics, they can put together these texts and these images so neatly, so nicely. Whereas I've seen adults who just struggle. And then you hand them a manga and watch their heads explode. Like, now do it backwards.
800 pages long. Go for
800 pages long, and it's all backwards. And yes, the panels are too. Go at it. Yes.
I wasn't that cool with my father. I just left it at mouse. That was the end of the experiment.
No, beyond that, you're teaching, and as we say, it just becomes difficult. Well, we're pretty much running out of time. Not that we can go all day. I could talk to you all day long, but I suppose. Yeah, exactly. But let's just end it up with, what are you working on next?
I am working with the daily strip. Is a daily struggle. I've been doing Macanudo for 19 years almost, so almost 20 years. And I remember, reading how Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side, they kind of lasted 10 years. Like the Beatles, and for me it was like this, will I still enjoy it after X amount of time? And strangely enough, I still do. Like, I'm basically a daily strip guy. It's not like I adapted myself to the daily strip. That was what I really wanted to do. But I'm always doing other stuff. Yeah, I've been inking like a future graphic novel, I guess. Here we go. Which, see what this is in like, I don't know, 5 years. It takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like blogging. I'm understanding this completely. I'm like, oh yes, it's like a daily blog you have to write. I understand this. Yes, I'm translating it to my own experience.
Yeah, that's also how I kind of managed to do the daily strip. Is I did not, because at the beginning I would look at the Calvin and Hobbes and Mafaldas, and they are all perfect. Like every day is amazing, and you go like, oh. I would look at mine and I would go like, no. So I'm going for quantity. It's not quality.
Quality. That's the message.
So,
well, Calvin.
50 years of Macanudo, I have the 10 good years of Calvin and Hobbes. That's the plan.
There you go. That's good. Yeah. If you just take the swath of it and then just like narrow it down and worship.
I'm always doing stuff. I'm always doing like different projects or whatever, and someone will offer something, and I'll go like, sure, why not? And then my life will be hell, like covers for books, or or records, or posters, or whatever. It's
the life of an artist. Oh, that's is what you do. All right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I should mention Wildflowers, which is your latest from TOON Books, is out April 6th, I want to say. Going to be on shelves everywhere. By the way, I love how big this is. It said special gift edition.
They have like two sizes.
Oh, they got two sizes. Oh, so this could be like the one you read at night with the kids as like a bedtime story, and then the little one could be the one they read to themselves.
I think Francois liked the drawings, and we're like, oh, let's give them also an option to make them big.
I personally, you know what? It's good for librarians because librarians have certain shelf requirements. So this big one might not necessarily fit in our easy book area, but there's an easy book size. It would fit. Very clever. Well done, TOON Books. Well done. All right. Well, Liniers, it is a joy talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me. And get back to your drawing, man.
That guy.
All right.
It's a pandemic. There's nothing else to do. Literally.
That's true. All right.